What's up, Who Nation? Welcome into Saints Daily, your home for everything to do with the black and gold. My name is Tim, and let's jump right into the first topic. We're officially 2 weeks away from knowing who the Saints have drafted in the first round as they prepare for day two. I want to go over some positions that the Saints have needs in, and a deep draft may allow for a double dip at that position in this draft. There are three positions that really stand out to me: cornerback, wide receiver, and edge. And all of these would be dependent, most likely, on them drafting someone in the first round and then later on in the draft. Mansour Delane and Jermod McCoy being the two first round cornerbacks that you would expect. A lot of people, after Jermod McCoy had his pro day, are starting to think that maybe it makes sense for him to go before Mansour Delane. And that could only be good news for the Saints if they want to keep the LSU product in Louisiana. Jermod McCoy, coming off of an ACL, did end up running in his pro day. He's expected to be ready by the start of training camp, so there's really no expected time missed from him to get up to speed, and he should be available on day one. At his pro day, he ran a 4.38. And if you look at a lot of the scouting, a lot of scouts will say his 2024 tape, so his tape from 2 years ago, since he missed all of 2025 with the injury, his 2024 tape is better than anybody's 2025 tape. So even if Monster Delane is not the pick for the Saints because he's taken before, McCoy is still a very legitimate option at 8 for the Saints if that's where they want to go. Some other corners in this draft that I personally like for multiple reasons are Chris Johnson from San Diego State and Keith Abney from Arizona State. Those would be potential second round guys. And then there's a guy in the third or fourth round, Chandler Rivers from Duke, who the more I'm looking at and into, the more I'm liking as a third or fourth round pick. Anybody who's watched this podcast before knows that Max Clare, the Ohio State tight end, is my draft crush in round 3. I think he would be there in round 3, and I think he is a perfect tight end for this team to build around and for the future. But Chandler Rivers is also a very intriguing prospect. He only allowed one touchdown all year last year, but the main thing to look at in the past 3 years, he's only been flagged 4 times. That's something that I love Paulson Adebo for what he did with the Saints. Alontae Taylor, and Marshawn Lattimore as well. This is a team that has a history of getting defensive backs who are a little grabby and get a lot of penalties. So having someone who is proven in college to not do that is absolutely somebody that I would love to see the Saints look at. And if he's available in the third or fourth round and there's still a need at corner, whether the Saints haven't drafted a corner yet or they want to double dip, this is a very good opportunity to do so. Obviously, this is a team that is coming in with Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley. Sometimes you have to take the homer glasses off and realize that, maybe the guy that you really like or has a lot of potential might not league wide be there yet, right? And Quincy Riley, I think, had a fantastic rookie year for a fifth round pick, but he was also a fifth round pick for a reason. And if you have an opportunity to maybe get more competition, at the very least, just competition, and with two corners to fill out that room, so that way now you have those four players, McKinstry, Quincy Riley, who are already on the roster. Right now, there are a couple corners on the roster that this team does have, but then you get a Delane McCoy or a Johnson, Abney, or a Rivers in as well. It does make you a lot more confident in that room. Wide receiver is the other position that I would expect the team to actually double dip on. Again, I know I've been on record saying that I think the wide receiver room is in a better shape than most people think. But assuming the Saints do go wide receiver in the first round, which they might, there is definitely some rumors out there, especially with Carnell Tate coming in for a top 30 visit. You have the top three guys, all three I could see being picked by the Saints in the first round, either at 8 or a trade down in Lemon, Tate, and Tyson. Round 2, every Saints podcast, every Saints insider, every Saints fan at this point has talked and heard about Chris Bell. So I want to focus on another potential second round pick and Zachariah Branch. The reason why I think Zachariah Branch would be a good pick in the second round is the guy's a returner. He's a return ace. He's a specialist in that field. The team needs to replace Rashid Shaheed. This is a guy who could replace Shaheed. His college tape and stats are a lot of behind the offensive line screens and passes to get him out in space with blockers ahead of him. So there's still a bit of a undetermined on his route running ability. But the guy is 4.35 speed. He's shorter. He is 5'9", but he is someone that would at the very least immediately come in and be the returner for this team, and that's something that this team has been missing since Shaheed got traded away. A round three option as well is Chris Brazzell. He, again, another fast receiver, less of a returner, but more of a burner, guy who goes down the field. He's known as maybe a one-trick pony for his deep routes, but he does it very well. Got a 4.37 speed. Depending on what website you look at, he's either 6'4" or 6'5", so he's big, fast. But again, he's got that one-trick pony label. A lot of players that are big and fast in college and are only asked to run deep routes and then not really refine their route tree because it's less competition. Like the competition that they're going against is a little bit lesser than you would be in the NFL. So one trick ponies are definitely weapons, and you don't need to work on that. So I would like to see him go to a team that has a good coaching staff that can help develop wide receivers and see where he can take off to. And if that would be with the Saints, I would be extremely excited to see what his potential could be. At the very least, he'd be fun in Madden. You know, anybody who's 6'5", runs a 4.37 is always going to be fun to play in Madden. So at the very least, that would be, you know, a nice benefit. And then finally, the last position that I could see the Saints double dipping in would be the edge position. And again, highly dependent on an edge falling in the first round. I've seen a lot of mocks lately that have Ruben Bain going to the Saints, and I know the short arm scares some people, but just watch some film, just watch some games from Miami, and I think a lot of people's fears would go away. He is very underrated in his run defense. He is just stronger than you. That's just the way to say. He's whoever he went up against. Yeah, he had shorter arms, but he was stronger than you, and he got through, and he was able to do what he needed to do. Bailey or Reese also falling has been something I've seen as well. You know, with all these risers at this point in time, Sonny Styles being one, Monster Delane being one, Jeremiah Love, potentially Caleb Downs. Somebody's got to fall, and one of the people who I've been seeing fall more and more is Arvell Reese. A lot of people just look at the combine, look at the athleticism, and maybe ignore the tape a little bit and go, well, Styles is a higher ceiling player. And I don't disagree with that he would be a higher ceiling player. But if Arvell Reese was a faller because of that and he fell to the Saints, I think that's the dream scenario for me outside of Caleb Downs. In the second round, you have potential to get Zion Young, and later in the draft, I really like the Penn State pass rusher Dennis Sutton, as well as Gabe. I don't know Jacas from Illinois. Both guys are built for a 3-4 defense. Great versatility. They could be a D end or an outside linebacker. Dennis Sutton would most likely just be an edge player, not an outside linebacker. The reason why I like Dennis Sutton so much is I think the film and the just watching Penn State games that I did watch, he really stuck out. When I was reviewing the candidates, I just looked at his stats real quick. He had 8 sacks last year in 13 games. He had 9 sacks the previous year in 16, and then 5 and I think it was also 13 games the year before that. So that's pretty good production. Whenever you're getting 8 sacks in 13 games, that's really good production. But the number that really jumped out at me was his hurries. He had 29 hurries last year, 23 the year before, and 19. So he just kept getting better and better at getting pressure on the quarterback. Again, another guy built for that 3-4 defense. He's 6'5", 265. He is a big man. This is somebody who I think the Saints actually realistically might be targeting, if I had to guess. This is fits the build. This is the guy that Mickey Loomis like. This is the build that Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland. Let me correct that. Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland both like these big defensive ends. So that's something that I definitely would expect the Saints to be at least entertaining at this point. I want to kind of pivot real quick to if there are any potential trade options still out there on the market. We're in a bit of a dead period in the NFL right before the draft. Not many people want to start trading because if you do, that does involve draft picks. But if there are any potential options out there, it's worth exploring and maybe determining if the Saints should be interested in it. Again, as fans, we all have our opinions, and it's always interesting to see who is on board with what. So the number one person I think everybody can agree is Max Crosby. I don't think the PR going on over there really aligns with what people want. I also don't think the Saints should entertain trading two firsts for an aging defensive end with a knee issue, right? He's coming off of a knee injury. I still think he's a fantastic player. I wouldn't want to see the Saints trade a first round pick for this player. I think at this point, door number two, the option behind door number two, whatever that is, with that number 8 pick or next year's first round pick is just more enticing. We'll talk about it in a little bit. I don't know if the Saints are ready to contend in 2026. I don't know if they're ready to win the division yet in 2026. So I wouldn't want to trade future draft capital either. So for this one, I would say it's a pass personally, especially because with most of these players we're going to talk about, you also have to pay the guy. First round picks, they have a salary cap limit that you have, so you don't have to worry about breaking the bank or a record setting deal, at least for the first 4 or 5 years. We talked about Dexter Lawrence a little bit yesterday. Gonna just high level it. He wants a pay raise. And I don't think the Saints can afford to pay a defensive tackle, top tier defensive tackle salary. As much as I love Dexter Lawrence and as much as he would be a fantastic piece for this team, he will cost at least a first round pick. So you're in the same scenario of giving up pick number 8 or next year's first round pick, which could be a top 10 pick again in a very strong draft. He's going to want a pay raise. I think he's going to be too expensive. The one on defense that really piques my interest, though, is the same team, teammate of Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. This is a guy that is being floated out there. There is a chance that due to his injury history, he has missed 9 games over the last 2 years and only got 8 sacks in those 22 games during that time. So he's not producing as much as you would expect him to produce as a high former first round pick. He is going to be due for a contract. But in his last healthy season, which was 2023, he got 11.5 sacks. He also had 3 forced fumbles and 1 fumble recovery. So he does have the production to back up potential pay raise. It's just how much of a pay raise do you want to give him? So I would be very interested in it, strictly dependent on how much he wants and how much he's expecting. This kind of fills a need for the Saints at defensive end. He might be available for a couple day 2 picks, depending on how much they're expecting for him. Maybe a first round pick, but he's young enough, in my opinion, to justify that first round pick with that production. Um, I don't know. I'm interested in him. I think the value of an edge kind of eliminates a need at pick 8. And I think if you look at what Thibodeau was as a prospect coming out and what he has produced as a pro, that's probably the ceiling of what you would maybe expect from a Bain or a Bailey. So you get more of a known commodity if that's the way you're going to go at 8. The 3 wide receivers that might be out there that the Saints could still be entertaining. Number 1 is Devontae Adams. He was rumored to be part of a trade deal that the Eagles and the Rams were working on. He was also a rumored free agent signing that the Saints are trading that the Saints could trade for whenever Derek Carr was here. As we all know, Adams and Carr are great friends since their college days. So there has been interest in the past. Obviously, salary, age do all come into effect. So in my opinion, I don't know if I would give up much more than maybe a day 3 pick for Adams. You still get a starting receiver who's the best red zone target in the NFL, and the Saints have struggled in the red zone pretty much since Sean Payton left. So I think this would be something that would be worth entertaining. I don't know if you give up for the age, the contract. I don't know if you give up much for Adams, and if they want more than maybe a fourth or a fifth, you probably pass. AJ Brown, the other piece of the Devontae Adams trade that was rumored. He's got the obvious link to Kellen Moore, and there's all this drama coming out about Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. So maybe some of those sources that have been coming out with this drama are linked directly to AJ Brown. Maybe not. but that is definitely something that is worth entertaining. Again, dependent on what you would have to give up. You are absorbing a big contract. This is a guy who absolutely knows his worth and his value. So I don't think he's going to take any less than what he should be getting. And the wide receiver market is really, really expensive. So Adams and Brown, once again, I think pass on them. The one guy at wide receiver who has absolutely been rumored as being available that I think the Saints should be looking at, depending on the price, again, is Brian Thomas Jr. This has been openly discussed. Everybody knows that he's potentially on the market. He did have a down year last year, issues with drops, just didn't look like the guy he was whenever he set some really good numbers up in his rookie year. He could be affordable based off of that. And this is also a huge need the Saints have right now. Wide receiver. They need to fill that room out. 4.33 speed, 6'2". He's big, he's fast, he's a good route runner. He's proven he can do it in the NFL. And he reminds me a little bit of Devontae Adams in terms of having a good year followed up by drop issues, right? Adams and him are completely different players. I'm not saying they're comparable by play style whatsoever. But in terms of having a really, really strong year and then following it up with just struggles and having a hard time holding on to the ball, I don't think you give up on Brian Thomas Jr. yet. I don't think you give up a first round pick for a guy who has issues with catching the ball when his job description is literally catching the ball. But it is definitely something worth entertaining. So let me know in the comments below. Did I miss anybody that you're interested in? Is there anybody that I brought up that you would like the Saints to actually entertain? Anybody that I brought up that I don't want the Saints to look into that you are personally thinking would be a good fit? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to hearing everybody's feedback. I want to take a quick zoom out real quick. I know there's a lot of excitement for the 2026 season, especially with the way 2025 ended. This is a team that finally may have their coach and quarterback again, the first time since Breeze retired. This is a team that has a lot of momentum and clearing up salary cap, and all of these things are pointing up. But I want to take a step back here and look, are the Saints actually ready to contend? And are they even trying to build a contender in 2026? Or is this all a 2027 reset? And the reason why I'm asking this question is everything suggests Tyler Shuck is the franchise quarterback. His play on the field last year backed it up. The way that they're building out the quarterback room around him has backed it up. The way that they built their offense with free agency around Tyler Shuck completely backs all of that up. So I think this is a team saying that we believe in our guy. We're just not going to rush the timeline or leave ourselves exposed with everything that they've done to this point. But then you have to shift to the veteran situation. This is a team that let go of Demario Davis. They didn't bring him back. He went to the Jets. It wasn't like he was going to a contender to win a Super Bowl. He went to the Jets. You have a franchise legend in Cam Jordan who's just sitting in free agency, and the Saints haven't made it a priority to sign him. In my opinion, and based off of everything I've heard, there's an offer out there. It just hasn't met what he wants yet. So probably after the draft, maybe into training camp, he gets to sit training camp out, sign a contract, and come back. That could be it. But this is a franchise that historically holds on to their core guys, maybe a little too long. They restructure contracts to kick the can down the road and stay competitive. And it feels different this year. It really feels like this has been very selective about who they're committing to long term. And I don't hate the shift, but I do question whether that means that this team thinks they're ready in 2026 or 2027. I think when you're building a team, you have to have good veteran leadership. I don't love a team that had great leadership from Cam Jordan and Demario Davis and Alvin Kamara last year and potentially not having any of those three in 2026. There's still questions about Alvin Kamara. There's still questions about Cam Jordan. You have a big decision coming up with the Chris Olave extension. It's over everybody's head at this point. It has to be, where you're looking at a guy who is a second team all pro coming off of that season, and now you're picking 8 in the draft, and you might go wide receiver. Are you going wide receiver to build around Chris Olave, have that 1A, 1B combo? Or are you going wide receiver to move on from Olave? Is he going to demand a JSN type contract? Or what is Puka Nakua's contract going to look like, and how is that going to affect what Chris Olave gets? When you take all this together, obviously, yes, they're developing Shuck, and the veteran approach is different, and it seems like a weird shift that a lot of Saints fans aren't used to. But it leaves questions for 2026 as well as the future. Is this a team that may be looking at 2027, seeing at the 2026 season closure, who's stepping up? Who fits with this system, with this team? Who's part of the future? And you have to get those questions answered at some point. Again, I'm starting to think that those are questions about the leadership and about who they think that is worth building around and keeping around. And that does include guys like Chris Olave, guys on the team who are fan favorites that may end up not being on the Saints much longer. So it's a weird shift. I do not think that I would be safely betting on the Saints to win the South this year, right? I think that they can, and I think that they probably should be favorites as of now. We'll see how the draft goes, free agency after the draft, and any trades that may happen. But it's a very interesting scenario. So definitely want to know everybody's thoughts as well. It's way too early for a prediction. If I had to give a prediction right now, I think the Saints are probably about the same right now. Schedule is very soft, so they might win a couple more games. I would say maybe 9-8, depending on what's going on. This is a team that has to prove they're ready for that next step. And that's not just the players on the field, that's the coaching. There are still questions in my mind about first quarter offense, about red zone offense, about the penalty issues that this team had last year. It's easy to forget some of those small things because the team ended strong. But the team ended strong with a lot of fourth quarter comebacks. The team ended strong with a lot of holdings and false starts and offsides penalties that can't happen and repeat if you want to be a contender. So I'll kind of leave it with this. If the Saints are trying to win right now, I don't know if this approach matches. I think they're building something that's going to peak a year or two from now. And again, I always want to know what you guys think as well. So please let me know in the comments below. Are we putting the cart before the horse? Are we getting too excited? Or is this all absolutely worth it? And this is the New England Patriots of the 2026 season, a team that can go from worst to first and actually make a run in the playoffs. Finally, today I want to go over a quick fun fact Friday. Get you ready for the weekend with some knowledge, some trivia about the Saints. This one is a fun fact, but maybe not so fun in a way as well. I want to ask you who you think the last New Orleans Saint that was drafted by the Saints on offense, defense, and special teams to make the Pro Bowl was. The answer for offense and defense is a weird parallel, in my opinion. So I'm stalling so that way you can maybe put some guesses in the comments, maybe think about it a little bit. We'll start with special teams, and the answer I think most people could easily find. I did not take into effect anybody that would be a gunner or anything like that. So just punter, kicker, and the answer is obviously Thomas Morstead in 2012. I was surprised to see he only had one Pro Bowl to his name. I thought he was maybe a bit more of a known commodity. And maybe he passed on a couple, but if you look at PFR, they list everybody's Pro Bowls, and Thomas Morstead was the only one there at 2012 that was drafted by the Saints. Will Lutz did have a Pro Bowl season, I believe it was 2019, but he was not drafted by the Saints. If you remember, he was on the Ravens. Um, squad back in training camp, and then John Harbaugh and Sean Payton connected. Harbaugh's like, we have Justin Tucker, we're not moving on, but this kid that we have is awesome. And there was a trade, got Will Lutz, and the rest is history. The guy on offense, I think everybody probably could have guessed it. Maybe not, because they might be expecting Olave, but Alvin Kamara. He has 5 Pro Bowls from 2017 to 2021, all 5 years in a row. Very, very kind of dry spell if you want to think of that. And I think this is a team that has drafted some offensive players that when the Saints start winning more games again, they'll start getting that recognition. I think the offensive line, Eric McCoy, if he stays healthy, he could be absolutely could be a Pro Bowler. I think you have David Edwards brought over, not drafted, so wouldn't fit in this category, but could be a Pro Bowler as well. Both tackles, I think, could be Pro Bowlers. Cesar Ruiz, jury's still out. Shuck has, Shuck, Olave. I think Juwan Johnson's starting to sneakily work his way up. So I think there's a lot currently on the roster. Defensively, and the reason why I'm saying this is a weird parallel, 2017 through 2021, 4 Pro Bowls, with 2018 being the only missed year. Same draft class as Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore. Again, very, very interesting that it's been that long for a defensive guy that was drafted, especially considering CJ, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson did not have a Saints Pro Bowl with the Saints. I think that's someone that a lot of people knew. I think there's a lot of people that could have gotten it. Maybe Lattimore post 2021. Alontae Taylor just signed a big contract before that. Paulson Adebo, Marcus Williams. Very interesting that some of these guys miss Pro Bowls. But again, winning teams tend to win the popularity contest that the Pro Bowl is. Maybe next fun fact will be all pros, which I think are a little bit more telling. Last year, Chris Olave was a second team all pro, but he's not a Pro Bowler. So, who knows really what actually matters. So let me know what you think in the comments below about this entire everything that we talked about today. Please, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe. And if you really, really did like it, press that like button. Share with your friends. And as always, Who Dat Nation, we'll catch you next time.